Hello. Who? Toontown? Toontown? Who the hell is that? That's not me. Woo! I grabbed a granola bar because I realized I haven't eaten since breakfast. Bridgerton? No. Oh, it is the old account. What am I saying? Of course I know that. You have your VIP. You're a VIP. How you doing? That's really funny. If I drink all my water now, I'm not gonna get water to the lie, I'll probably get water later. I have about a little bit less than halfway full mason jar cup, but I did need that. I have also been I'm always dehydrated, but it's weird. That's like lukewarm water because my room is warm. We're gonna wait a little bit more because I don't feel like turning my computer on or turning my things on, and I'm gonna eat my granola bar. It's not this granola bar is not frozen, so it's real soft. Drinking all that water at once is a weird feeling. Gross. Yeah, because I remember playing it, and then hating it, and not wanting to go back to watch it because it was gonna make me angry. So it's not gonna be, it's not gonna be, not gonna be a YouTube video. Oh, I can help it. Well, now I have to go back and get more water. I'll get it later. Or should I get it now and then just, to waste more time to see if the others are gonna join? Because if they join and then ask me to repeat the things, I'm gonna be really annoyed. Waste more time? Okay. I will be back again. Alright, I got more water and I also got a seaweed snack because I chugged all that water and then and then ate that granola bar and my headache started going away because, you know, eating enough food and drinking enough water makes your headaches go away. Something I continue to forget. So we're gonna eat this as well because I want some salt. Because I don't think I've had... I had a grilled cheese this morning, but I haven't had much salt today. It started storming because that's what happens in the summertime here. It is real hot and gross for a few days, and then it storms really hard, or sometimes really hard, sometimes not very hard, but it'll storm. And then it'll just be like muggy, and then it'll get real hot again, or it'll immediately go real hot, so that's fun. I swear to God, if Kai and Debbie don't show up, I'm going to actively be mad. Here, I'm gonna ping them personally. It also smells really nice outside because we've been getting smoke again. Or yeah, for like the last 2 days we had it's been smoky in the air, and it's been burning me from the inside out, like burning my lungs, making my spit taste acidic. It's weird. And so I haven't had my window open, which sucked for airflow purposes, and also I've been wearing my mask outside everywhere. But now it's raining and it smells like rain, and it smells really good, but it also probably means we're gonna get a lot of smoke when the rain stops. That sucks, but whatever. I'm not. I'm doing other things. Why do you want me to do an ad? Why do you want me to do ads for other people? Different council members doing different ads for sponsors would be sort of funny. No, not for me to write. What am I supposed to do with that? I'm gonna finish my seaweed snack. It's really not going to be that funny, actually. And it would just be an ad. I can't imagine. Something that I think that would be funny is, all of you are standing in front of a wall. Oh, the rain just got heavier. Yeah, I'm gonna veto that. Because I have to think about other writing things, and I've already brought up a thing people can request I write today. I'm not doing 2. But I can imagine y'all doing ads for me for Bridgetown, and me threatening you like I have a gun to your heads. Swear to God, they're not showing up. I didn't even show that much because I gave him a time. It's been 13 minutes. That works too. Yeah, okay. Alright, you know what? Sure. We'll try that. I'm also not gonna put on my headphones because my head always hurts. How did I do this before? Underlines. Do. Control V. Oh, you did misspell wood. Yep. My stupid mouse isn't working. Okay. Oh, right, you can't see. Can't see chat whatsoever. Forgot about that. Okay. Chat. Grab. Here. Give me image number 2. What is happening? Okay. No, not that one. Just give me image number 2. There we go. Let's see. What can I write about for that? Alright, remember, kids! No, that's stupid, but I'm gonna write it because I thought of it. Alright, remember, kids. Bridge said. Walking. Walking behind the line of where is it? Oh, where's strike through actually? I don't remember. You know what, we'll do it after. Prisoners struck through. Where is it? I don't remember where strike through is. Yeah, let's look for it. Strike through text. Alt Shift 5? No. Council members. Redeemed ad lol. You just have too many points. Okay, 1 second. I should take points away from you. I don't know if I can do that. I could just lie and, or not lie. I could just, not redeem it. Oh, that's what I moved. I was wondering what I moved. Let me pull up Twitch and put the ad on. Because I can't do it from, actually, can I do it from here? I cannot. Ugh, it'd be great if I could do it from OBS, but I can't do that. What fun fact do you want? Give us lore now. That what kind of lore? What do you want? What's up? What do you want? You might hear double. Wait. No. Wait. No. Oh god, this is so annoying. There we go. Okay. Ad time. Where's ad? There it is. 1 minute. Single? About the place you're trapped? You mean the bunker? The council? Yeah, the council bunker room. Like, what about it? Like I said, it's, the ad should be running. It's a bunker place. The walls are not, solid? I get, like, they feel solid if you go out and touch them, but they're not real walls. It's kind of like made of imagination, to be completely honest. Singular. Doesn't know how to speak. Okay. But yeah, it's kind of like, it's really raining outside. It's kind of like made of imagination. I think I've said this before. Are they fleshy? No, they feel like concrete. Unless you go into a club room that's specifically made of flesh walls. They do kind of like when the admins move through the walls, they can take on kind of a fleshy feel to them, but generally they feel like whatever they look like. I mean, lots of things are made of imagination, like my will to live, for example. No. I'm being literal here. They're literally made of your ability to perceive them, or I guess the council members' ability to perceive them. If y'all stop believing in them as being the walls there, technically they would stop. Yeah, technically they'd stop being there. Is there a place made of flesh? Possibly. Not that I know of currently. But there could be. Like, it's not necessarily up to me with what we look at. So we're just delusional, of course. That's the vibe. I don't know why it's like this. That's so weird. Okay, well, whatever. Everyone was standing facing the blank. The Lulu gang? Yeah. That's kind of the point. That's kind of how the entire place exists. It's y'all believe in it. I swear to God, they're not gonna show up and I'm gonna feel so stupid. As if it were an audience. Yeah, I know, but Debbie said that she'd show up. I'm sad now. Kids, smiles. Smiles, remember, it's like you were trying. It's like you want more friends, yes? Yes, you do. Debbie's probably asleep. Yeah. I'm going to be annoyed. I'll probably still do the setting lesson. It's just won't be. No one's going. Who was asking where it's gonna be here? It's fine. None of them. Could see. Was behind it. That's all I was thinking. That's all I could think of. It's just like yes, you want new friends. If your headache gets worse, yay! And then I'll be all alone here. Well, whatever. It's fine. Who cares? If you leave, I'm probably just gonna stop streaming, then do this another day. Do all the work so I don't have to, as a quote for me. I was thinking like probably yes. Nope, that's not what I wanted. They hadn't walked into this line. In fact, of the council members had even walked into this room. Some of them had fallen asleep and woken up standing some of them simply blinked. And opened their eyes to wall. I don't know why I put a comma there. My brain's not doing great. And for some reason, them could move from their spots. I don't feel like doing other people's characters because it's annoying and I don't want to do it. So I'm not going to. By the way, what's up? Pause. Go on. There. Because it wouldn't be a gun. I was thinking. Hey! Yeah, it was fun. I had fun with that. I'm talking too quietly. Sorry. I'm talking too quietly. So sorry. I can't hear. And I'm not having my mic because you have to yell. I do not have to yell. Don't tell these things to me. Do I want apple pie? If anyone comes to my house and brings me apple pie, I'm going to make them leave. So no. And you're happy with it, how it's turning out? Yay! But yeah, I'm very willing. OMG, it's the mod with the nice voice. Yeah, I know. But yeah, if you want help with editing, things like that, or you want notes on what you're writing, fully down to do that. It's so much easier to do it like that than to have people vaguely describe what they're trying to do and then me trying to guess how to help them. So I appreciate actually having had something to write off of. I'll try to help the other way too. It's just weird. It's just weird. Yeah, I said an hour and a half from before. It's been an hour and a half. It skills you. It was 4:35 technically. It was 4:35, okay. And I said like 2 hours or less, an hour and a half. Maybe back later. Good luck, Bridge. Stay forever. Love you. I said, if you look back at what I say here in the Writers Club, I say, yes, in like 2 hours or less, 1.5. You, that's a you problem, baby girl. There was a sound like, because I was saying a gun. It's not gonna be gun. It's gonna be a knife. Because obviously it's gonna be a knife. Because I'm a loser. Like metal against leather. Advertise for me. I don't want to do it. Do it for me. Yeah, actually, I don't want to do it. Do it for me. And then that's it, because I don't actually want to write y'all saying anything. Because I'm lazy. No. I start doing the actual lesson. I was asked to do a thingy. Doing ads for different. So now they're trapped here. You can think of whatever you want. Anyway, I want to do the lesson because it's more easy and fun, and I don't want to. I wrote in my notes things to go over for the lesson. Woo! I did. That's why I was talking about it on Thursday. I think it was Thursday. Yeah. Redeem expensive takes time to heal. Yeah, if you guys didn't show up here, I would have left. So we're talking. One of my favorite things to do, I can't spell. imagery and setting. Woo! Yay! The first note I have is, first and foremost, give up on people seeing the world the way you do. Which is very funny to me, and also very true. Because actually, I'm gonna just copy-paste my notes. I'm gonna copy-paste my notes into... Wait, no, I shouldn't do that. My name might show up on the thing, actually. I'll just talk about... We'll just write it. Give up on the idea of people seeing the world the way you do. My first piece of advice, with imagery and setting, no one's ever gonna see the thoughts you have in your head. So give up on that idea. You'll see it in of course we're gonna talk about fanfiction because I have a lot of experience with that, but you can also sometimes see it in certain actual published works, is that people go way too hard on trying to describe what things look like. Imagine reading fanfiction? Yeah, imagine reading fanfiction. But yeah, people go way too hard on trying to accurately describe the way that something looks, and you'll see it in a lot of fanfiction or like fanfiction style writing, even if it's like original works, with outfits. Like, you ever read something and someone has fully stopped the story to describe a person's entire outfit? I actually think I have an example of this. Give me my screen back. An example of this in the polycest fanfiction. I was referencing that specific bad writing trope because it's a bad writing trope and it's gross. Yeah, and that's because they have a very specific... Where is it? Where is the polycest? The polyception, is that what this is? Yeah, but people also do that in actual writing, and it's very distracting. So as you can see, actually in my thing, I don't describe what the people look. I don't really describe too much what the people look like. I just describe specifically what they're wearing. But yeah, there's an entire sentence dedicated to exactly what they're wearing. I messed it up. They were wearing a black Minecraft shirt that had a creeper hat on it, a black skirt, a spiked choker, and body chains. On their feet was a pair of demonios, silver buckles going all the way up the front. That has a little bit more flow to it, but oftentimes people will literally just list clothing items, and it gives you a very specific idea of what the person or the character looks like. And it's not just character outfits, but this is like the most popular example I can think of. People also do this for settings, but people just kind of list exactly what they're seeing in their head and things like that, and it puts the story to a standstill, and it does not feel natural. And oftentimes, especially with more complicated imagery or scenery, it can get very, very muddy because you start describing very, very specific details and you're like, wait, where am I again? Wait, what were the other things? I forget what was just happening right now. There is a way to do it, but there's a reason that let me just delete this. There's a reason this is my first tip. Give up on the idea of people seeing the world the way you do. You're not trying to describe exactly what the place looks like when you're doing setting and imagery. You're trying to convey the vibe. You want people to understand sort of you want people to get an idea of what it looks like, and then have them fill in all the details themselves, because people are very, very good at filling in details. If you've ever seen any fan artist do any kind of fan art of places that were described in stories, in any kind of story where there is no pictures already there, people are very good at making things look very, very cute. Cool. Cute too. But people are very good at making things look very cool with minimal description. And you kind of just, you have to like lead them to that and then let them run off with that. It's like you feed them little bits and then you go, cool, anyway, goodbye. Yeah, because it can get very muddy. It can feel a little bit too... It can feel like hand-holding. Yeah, that's basically it. You gotta establish the important bits, and then people will do the rest. And that is their job as a reader, it's to interpret the rest of them. There are certain specific things that you can do to get the general idea of what you want, but... like, if you're describing, let's say, a bookshelf, you're not going to describe every single book on that shelf. Even if you can, in your mind, see every single book on that shelf, you can really, like, cut it down to, it was a, like, stuffed full bookshelf. There were knickknacks and things hanging off the side. Someone had stuck sticky notes, full of writing all over the thing. And then that'll give you an idea of what I'm describing. Even that was a little bit much, I'd say, yeah, the description wasn't great, but that gives you a very clear idea of what it looks like, but it's not giving you exactly the way that I'm thinking of it, right? Because I'm literally looking at my own bookshelf and giving a rough estimation of what that looks like, because my bookshelf is gross. It's real messy. There's so much on it, and I have knickknacks literally everywhere on it, and it's just tactical. But it gives you a basic idea, and then you have your own interpretation. I could go more into exacts of what it is, but then it's just like, why are you telling me this if it's not important? Because, again, everything that you put in writing is important to the story. It doesn't matter if it actually is important to the story, but it's there and it exists and it takes up time and space, and so it becomes important to the story because you've written it in. Where's the line between too much and too little, though? That is something that is difficult to say. If the person, or if you can't, it'll depend on the scene that you're doing, right? Because there are very easy shortcuts to do. Like, if your story is set in relatable settings, like a house or a school or a field, like a forest, things that people already have ideas of what they look like, then you can really just establish that and then not really establish anything after that. Or you can do like minimal establishing from that point. If it is something that is a lot more specific, then you will have to go more into specifics. I generally, personally, I try to do like basic idea of I do what I can to get the vibe I feel across, and then any specific sensations I can think of, and then after that it's just whatever the characters I'm using experience, like anything they interact with, anything they're going to interact with, those things can also be specified, be mentioned there, and it also helps build more imagery. Yeah, by the way, if you do have an idea of a setting that you want me to try writing a scene with, I can do that and try to explain, because it really is, I keep saying this, but it is something you have to learn. And it is kind of, hey-oh, that's on you. But yeah, it is something that you do have to learn how to make your way through. I would say in general, it depends on how important the setting is to the scene and to the story. If it is something a lot more important or that your character is going to spend more time in, you can spend more time describing this place. But I'd probably suggest to draw that out throughout the time that your characters are spending in this place. So not just have it all info dumped at the start. That's another thing. You generally don't want to just info dump about a place. Or I guess exposition dump is technically not quite exposition. But yeah, you don't want to put all of the information about a place in your introduction of the place, because that makes, again, that's like a hard stop to the story and can make things boring, especially if you don't exactly know how to describe scenery or how to make it interesting to read. If you've ever, this is another thing where consuming media about what you're going for is very helpful, and you don't even have to consume just like writing for this, but I take a lot of example from DMs when they're describing scenery. They do a lot of front loading of information for scenery, but they're very good at giving an idea for what a place looks like. And another example, in terms of trying to find out what's a good balance between too much information and too little information, if you go with the idea of being a DM, you need to give characters enough information, like you're literally speaking to them, so it's not written down. They don't, unless they're taking notes, they only have what they can remember. You need to give them enough information so that they know how they can interact with the world, but not enough information for a long enough period of time that they get confused and forget what the place looks like. And also when you're describing it, you kind of want to do it in not the simplest terms, but generally if you go for simpler and more straightforward terms and things like that, it is easier for a person or a PC to understand and actually understand what's going on. Settings and scenery. Let me check what the rest of my notes say. Okay. So, a setting is not just the place, but it also include settings include not just the place, but also people, mood. I'm trying to read and also write this down. Vibe, previous scene, POVs, assumptions, lighting, weather, and temperature, etc. So everything you're basically everything you experience drives the perception of your setting. So if you walk into a new room, it's not just the actual physical place that is going to give, like, that you're going to process. It's going to be what the weather is like, if this is, I guess, like an exposed room, or even if there's like a window. 1 second. I forgot how I muted my mic and I just said a thing and then no one heard me because you guys can't hear me. Anyway, my mods are here right now. I can't invite them to come say hi because my room's disgusting and they're not allowed in my room. I have to go entertain them. I'll be back. Sorry. Before I forget, they do say hi. Just saying. I promise I'll be back. I'll be back. Okay, the mods have been entertained. Oh. I'm back. What's up? They do say hi. Oh, you. Yeah, the mods have left. Possibly. The beloveds. Love them. They just showed up. That's our bad. You don't feel guilty about it. Oh, now my eye's being weird. Cool. Anyway. What was I saying? That's so mean. You showed up at my house in the middle of my stream. Would have invited you in, and you gave me like some warning. You guys could have sat in here and hang out. That's fine. It's fine. Anyway, love you too, mama. Kissies. Next time invite me out so we can hang out. I was saying, setting needs to include like everything else. It was very funny, yes. So when you walk into a room for the first time, it's not just the place that you're looking at, it's also any other information you have about the place that you're going. It is the weather, it's the lighting, it's the temperature that the like room or the area is. It's whatever just happened to you is going to the people you're with. All of these things are going to color the way that you experience the world, and the way that you experience a scene. So when I talk about setting the vibe as being what you're mainly aiming for when you're doing setting and or imagery, you're doing that. You're establishing what else has been going on, and not just the place that you're in, which leads into like the idea of making things creepy, or really making them kind of any emotion. But I was specifically asked about creepiness, so I'm gonna talk about that. It's not just the place that's creepy, because you can't have like an abandoned basement or something that is creepy, or like an abandoned hospital. We'll go with hospital. That already the idea of it is creepy, but if it's like an abandoned hospital that has been abandoned because it needs to be cleaned, but you go in the middle of the day and like all the lights are on and you're with a group of people who are there to do a job, and like you know that nothing weird is happening in the hospital, then it's not as creepy as an abandoned hospital where you're like, oh yeah, I know that like someone crazy killed a bunch of people and like the lights are off or they're flickering and it's like gross and disgusting and it's in the middle of the night. And like they're very different vibes. Is everyone here still? I just need to check that I'm not just spewing to no one. Sound off, please, if you're here and listening to me. I need validation. Thank you. You're here. You're always here. Cool. It's just you. I don't know. Does that make sense, what I was just explaining? Oh yeah, also, just your eating sticking hair, right? Okay. Yeah, one of the big things is, because a lot of what people are writing is character forward. Say that like it's a bad thing. Say what like it's a bad thing? It's fine. I don't. Yes, my understanding's fair. Cool. A big part of, at least for me, for what I'm doing, for what I write and how I write, a big part of how I make people feel certain ways is through the way that the main character or our narrator, our point of view character, sees the world. So a lot about their assumptions, a lot about how they feel, a lot about what they experience through all of their senses, because it's not just a sense of sight that, or even like a sense of sight and a sense of sound that really adds to how people feel in the place. It is how things smell, any kind of like vibrations in the ground, when they're walking through through a room, the way the air feels on them, the way that what the temperature is, any kind of breeze, if they're stepping in things and it's like squishy, or if it's really solid, if the way when they move around the room, if that makes a sound, or if it feels muffled, or things like that. You're gonna get a lot of that through the way that the character interacts with the world, which can also really help establish a setting, because it really helps to narrow the setting down to what is important if you have it seen through the character that you're working with. Because that way it's really hard to go too broad when you're focusing into one person like this, because they can only see and experience so much, right? So it's really helpful for character forward writing. If you're not doing character forward writing, it is a different thing, and then that is when you kind of have to use your own judgment on how much or how little of a place that you really want to talk about. Even in my less character forward writing, I still focus on characters, and then what's going on around them. But even if you're not doing character forward, it'll be like around what's happening in the plot, which is why when world building, it can be very easy to write a bunch of stuff and then have it never be used because you're writing things that have nothing to do with the story you're writing, and that's not helpful to you. It can be helpful if you want to understand more about the world itself and how they interact with each other, but for an actual story, it has to like coincide with that, or else you're kind of just writing for no reason. So there's that. Next thing. Oh yeah, use as many senses as possible for important scenes. Not necessarily as many. Ad? Oh, did we get another ad? Ooh, fun. Tell me when ad is done. Yeah, tell me. Tell me when ad is done, because no one else is here for me to pander to. Okay, cool, we're back. Nice. So, you use all of the senses. You don't have to use all of the senses, of course, if you don't want to, or if like for whatever reason the character doesn't have one of the senses. But yeah, it really does help with immersion into a scene if you do use more senses. So don't just rely on sight, because some people will just rely on sight and then even forget sound exists. But yeah, people have so many senses, and it's not just sight, sound, smell, touch, taste. Like, there are more things than that, like sense of time, sense of balance, sense of temperature, things like that. All of these things you can use to describe a scene, and it also can make things feel more intense for a reader, because they can relate more to it, because balance, yes, balance. So if you ever have someone who is on a very, very tall tower and they know they're on a very tall tower, they may get a sense of vertigo. Yeah, they might get a sense of vertigo, they might feel dizzy, or even not like on a tall tower, but if they're in a room that is very overwhelming, or in the place that is very overwhelming, they can get a sense of vertigo. It might feel like they might feel faint, they might feel like they're gonna fall over, or something like that. Or if they just want to jump, that's actually a thing. It's called the Call of the Void. Even in people who who don't want to kill themselves, it's a thing that tends to happen. You kind of feel wanting to go, yeah. Or if you've ever like closed your eyes and then tried to walk in a straight line, it can be very hard to hold your balance, so it can feel that sense of disorientation. Or if you're describing like magic or something like that in a room, can give that sense of disorientation. Someone feels dizzy and they want to throw up, things like that, which is fun. But yeah, in my notes, it actually says for use all the senses for important scenes. And I do believe in using more senses for more important scenes, because it really does kind of hammer home the idea that what's happening here, this setting, this place is important. Even if it's not important for the overall story, it's important at this time. People might not remember in a story a character walking into a room that has a desk in it, but they probably will remember a character walking into a room and then getting hit by intense smell of like smoked wood or something. I don't know where I was going with that, but like it's something you don't see as much in a lot of stories, is using more senses, so it can really like draw attention. It's like, oh, that's important. And also helps with other like relating things together, relating scenes together or traits together. Things can smell similar, or it can do character building. Like, hey, why does this place smell like this? Especially if it belongs to a certain character. It can be, oh, because this person really likes the smell, or it's because they do this thing, like you walk or yeah, because they do this thing, etc., 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 and can tell you a little bit more about that character. Or it can very quickly, it can be a good shorthand for certain feelings, like if like the smell of a home-cooked meal is a quick shorthand for a place that is comforting and homey, like this homey. The smell of a campfire or a forest is very outdoorsy and kind of gives a sense of adventure. Things like that. The smell of cigarettes sometimes can be used for certain characters as something that's comforting, because it reminds them of the smell of a person that they miss. Or it can be very like traumatizing because it reminds them of bad situations, but it's also a fun thing to do. You can relate it to a character's to the way a character has like their past experiences, things like that. Anyway, senses. I bring up smell just because that one's an easy one to go off of, because people generally recognize sights and sounds as things like that, but smell is less often used. Taste is a little bit harder to do, but you can do that if your character is eating food, or if there's a very intense smell that it's so intense that they can basically taste it. Touch and feel can be a little bit tricky if your character's not like interacting with things, but you can use descriptive language that is related to touch and feel to kind of convey that without your character actually interacting with things. Like describing something as grimy, because grime is a grimy is a sensation, something they're feeling. If you're using certain descriptive words that relate to feel and things like that. That's another thing. You don't actually have to have this character experiencing these sensations, but the way the words you use can call back to these senses that the reader might experience. It's not just what's in the setting, it's how it's described, which actually goes off of what I just said. It's the words and descriptions. So yeah, it's not just what is in a place, it is how it is described and what words are being used. So certain words are, like, we all know what synonyms are. Synonyms are things that have the same meaning or very similar meanings, and with adjectives and other descriptive words, you can have things that technically mean the same thing but have different connotations, so they give you a different idea when you're using them. Or like the different so Sonora Dictionary or a thesaurus, honestly. But no, it's like, it's less about like finding exactly the words that mean exactly what you're trying to say. It's less about that. It's more about not using words that kind of take away from what you're trying to put down. If you're using a thesaurus for like all the every description, everything you're trying to say, it can feel very impersonal and very clinical, which may be what you're going for, but is probably not for the most part. But it can feel very detached, especially if you're using these words and you've never used them before and you don't really know how to use them. It can feel weird and detached, and especially if the person who's reading actually knows how to use these words, it may jar them out of the experience. So like, if I'm trying to describe, let's say if I'm trying to describe what my room looks like, I use the word disgusting because I'm being hyperbolic, but I'd probably more so describe it as cluttered and messy, and having too many things, which in the realm of those words, the word dirty also comes up, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's dirty. I have so many things and they're kind of all over the place. But the word dirty gives you a different idea of what the room looks like than me saying cluttered and messy. I might say the word eccentric, because there are words that are nicer than other words when using them to describe things. But yeah, it's the words you use can help like give the note of reset my brain. Yeah, I know, it was loud. I was confused. But yeah, words can be helpful for that, but also the way that sentences are structured the way that sentences are structured, and not just the descriptive words, but the words and all the other words in sentences can help describe a sort of a vibe and an energy. So sentence structure is hard. Yes, I understand that. I know. But you have to use, or you don't have to, but if you're describing something that is very polished, very formal, very, like, by the numbers, like, sleek and modern, things like that, if I was to describe that in a sentence, I would not be using the word, or if I was to describe a scene like that, I wouldn't be using like so much, or I would be a lot more clipped and intentional with my words. I would make sure that I am being more formal, being more strict with not necessarily my vocabulary, but the amount of words I use. Writing in different fonts, that can help, yeah, but it can also get distracting depending on how you're doing it. But yeah, definitely different fonts can help, but that is kind of more of a formatting thing. It's also like using italics and bold and strike through and underline and spacing and things like that. Sentence length, punctuation, things like that. You can definitely have those. You can definitely have those to kind of pad out the vibe on it, but definitely, like, the easiest one to do that takes the least amount of effort between different mediums, and by that I mean like converting or like moving text from one thing to another, is by by using like the words and the sentence structure itself. But yeah, you can do that, and then also yeah, bold and stuff through there. On the flip side of that, if you want something to be more whimsical and like playful, dramatic, showy, things like that, you can use the language itself to convey that without saying words like this place is dramatic and showy and whimsical, and stuff like that. So you can, okay, fine, I'll be back. But yeah, you can use like the words and descriptions. To be a lot easier if I actually, I'll write a little scene. I'll like describe a little scene to show some of these things in actions. But yeah, that's show don't tell exactly. But specifically in terms of setting, you can describe it's like a twofold thing, because it's kind of a meta version of show don't tell, because it's not actually the words themselves, it's like the way you arrange them. So it's a meta level of show don't tell, things like that, which is also the formatting and stuff like that can help, length of sentences, use of literary devices, blah 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 blah. I will be back. I'm going to the bathroom. I'll explain it a little bit better when I come back. I've returned. Okay. So, in terms of sort of a meta level of show don't tell, I don't know if I have. Hello. I don't have examples of this. But one of my favorite things is, run-on sentences. Yeah, using run-on sentences to give the idea of something being long and winding and or intense and things like that. Let me think. Like, if I was to describe a very modern, very sleek kind of office space, I'd write, I don't know, give me a name. Give me a name for a character so I don't have to think. I don't know how long your delay is. Austin? Okay. Autism? That's immediately what I saw. That's not what I wrote, but that's what I saw because I wrote an M. It's fine. Austin walked in, into the office. Like, I guess he's feeling apprehensive. Feeling, that's your brain, not mine. Apprehensive. I'm using a few things. He had never been, you know what? This is his first job. This was his first real job. Setting up straight. This is his first real job in a with a real salary. With the real salary. And define real job? No. With real salary. With real actual people counting on him to get his work done. I believe CCs are not real. No, by that I mean my first job was not an actual job position. It was technically a volunteer and we just got paid under the table. So it was not a real job. I didn't pay taxes. The office space was large. We're actually gonna make that a new chapter, paragraph. Was large. We did talk about this. Black slate tiles lining the floors. And I don't know, and floor to ceiling windows, making up 2/3 of the wall. 2/3, sure. And floor to ceiling windows, taking up half the walls. The furniture was sleek and modern. Nary? No, not fingerprint seen on the chrome single black desk was center of the room, of the room, there and ready for him to use. We're that way. I can't do that. But yeah, like in this example, this actually is a sentence that is, for the actual setting, would feel like a little bit too casual, but that's because it's kind of how Austin feels in this situation. He feels, it's a new old phone. It was, my dad's old phone that I'm just using now. This sentence here, this was his first real job with a real salary, with real actual people counting on him to get his work done, is more about Austin, who feels kind of out of place in this space, and so he's a little bit more casual, and then was large black slate tiles lining the floors, and floor ceiling windows taking up half the walls. So lots of glass, lots of lots of squares with the tiles. Furniture was sleek and modern, not a fingerprint seen on the chrome. So it's very clean or very unused. Single black desk was at the center of the room. Very open, very very empty area. I also didn't know what I was describing, so give me a break. If I wanted to, I could also put in that he could like smell the scent of like a disinfectant or something. What does Google Chrome have to do with this scene? No, Chrome is like a finish. It's technically, it's like real shiny metal kind of thing. If you've ever seen the Bean, the Seattle Bean, that's Chrome. Real reflective. Walmart employee ? What? No. But yeah, like it's kind of bare bones here. And then if I was just, it's hard to do this without actually having a description written up. But if I was to describe something more whimsical, I'd probably have a much longer description. I'd probably, actually no, here's an example, a very, very good example of what I mean by like the meta show don't tell. If I'm describing like a cottage, like a witch's cottage, whimsical, yeah. When I was describing a witch's cottage, I would say, I could say something like this. The walls were lined with shelves, stuffed to the brim, kind of shelves. I'm gonna use the bursting. So the difference between stuffed to the brim and bursting, two different ideas, or two different phrases for the same exact idea, but we'll go with bursting. With bottles and crystals and dried herbs and candles. What else could be on these shelves? With bottles and crystals and dried herbs. I don't like the order of these things, but we're going with it for example. And parchment, and pencils and blah blah blah, and pencils, and even more that Austin couldn't see. So here I'm using polysyndeton by using and, but I have already said this idea of bursting here, like they're basically, there's so much on these shelves, but even without that, the description here, bottles and crystals and dried herbs and candles and parchment and pencils, and even more than that, that's a kind of a meta version of show don't tell, because I'm telling you what's there, but the way I'm presenting it to you makes it, gives you the idea that, oh, they're all kind of just thrown in there, they're all kind of clumped together, there's not really an order of the to them. It's a little bit messy, kind of thing, which is pretty different from the way that this here is kind of explained. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Which is a little bit different from how this is explained, where it's like yeah, there's kind of an idea of the way that things are put together. Like, yeah, we're talking about the floors and we're talking about the walls, furniture, and then more furniture, kind of thing. It's like there's structure to that, and then if I was to go on to describe this place with these shelves, it would be first of all a much longer description, but also a lot more of a chaotic. Have fun. I don't think there's anyone else here. But I will continue to talk because I can. But yeah. That is how that works. Next note I have, however, realizing when you're doing too much description. It's, again, it's hard to do that without an example, but it's kind of, it is, I know how not to go overboard with dialogue tags and actually use them correctly. Oh no, that's something you have to learn in your soul. You feel it in your soul. Have fun. Bye-bye. But yeah, that's something you feel in your soul. It is part of it is going to be how your style is, because some writers will have lots of description and they can't, some of them can pull it off, some of them cannot. It is by opinion, so you know, it's whatever. But it's kind of, that's when having beta readers or editors, or even rereading your thing yourself after you've taken some time away from it, can be really helpful. I kind of, you can, if you have a concern about doing too much, like you realize that you do often do too much description, you can kind of do a thing where you do the bare minimum, and then yeah, do absolutely the bare minimum to kind of have an idea of where your characters are, and then from there you can add little bits more where you think it added to this story. I think that's kind of a good point where it's like, if you feel like what you're doing is redundant or isn't adding to the story and it's kind of like a throwaway detail, then you're doing too much. But it is always going to be time and like scenario specific. You're never going to have a perfect formula that'll work for literally everything. And it also might not be that what you're doing is too much description, but where you're putting it, where the description goes. There you go. Yeah, it might be where the description goes that is a little bit off or a little bit wrong. Again, this is something you kind of have to feel your way through. But like I was saying before, where it's helpful to have a character interact with their scene to give more information about it. This can help your scene feel less, this can help get more description and get more information about a setting or a place or like imagery without it feeling very shoehorned in, without front loading people with information, and also it helps kind of cut back on whether or helps kind of reassure when you're worried about doing too much or too little. Because yeah, if a character has to interact with a thing, then it kind of has to be in that description, and if the character's interacting with that thing, then you kind of have to describe it enough, right? I don't know how I'm wording that, but when a character interacts with a thing, it's generally that's a good place to put description of it, so you can describe a lot smaller details because it feels more broken up, and so you actually have them in areas. And also kind of works with dialogue too, and dialogue tags, because you know you kind of have to move on with the conversation when you're doing proper dialogue. it feels if it kind of if your readers kind of forget that someone's in the middle of a conversation when they're talking to people, then that's when you know you've kind of gotten a little bit too far with your descriptions, or the pacing of the conversation feels wrong, which will of course depend on what the conversation's about and the vibe of the conversation. If you're having a very like fast-paced or frantic or important conversation, or not necessarily important, but if you're having a very fast-paced, a very frantic conversation, something where information needs to be exchanged and they don't have a lot of time, or they're on a time limit or something, then you kind of have to cut back on what goes between those sentences. If you have a scene where there's not much of a threat or danger, or there's not a time limit and the characters are just kind of hanging out, then you can have more things between it, because then it can kind of give the idea of they're lounging. Again, another meta use of show don't tell. They're relaxed, they're lounging, blah 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 blah. If you do have a lot of in-between space, like a lot of in-between text between a frantic conversation, it can make the character whose point of view we're in seem not that interested in the situation, or like they aren't concerned or something. But again, it depends on what the thing is about. But yeah, that's like where description goes, where you put all this kind of information can also be a fun way to, this is the thing that I do, it can be a fun way of adding mystery to a story, or like adding foreshadowing or intrigue, because there's different levels of how much of like the kind of information or how much information you give, and you can do a thing where you, whenever it comes up, you give like the bare minimum information, or maybe even a little bit more than that, when something is going on, but you keep this other vital information that would recontextualize or change the view of whatever's happening. You can move that to a later point in the story, and so when that later point comes, it's a revelation, and you get information posthumously, I guess. To whatever scene happened. Shh. So yeah, that can be really helpful if you're going for like mystery or intrigue. I have to turn my notifications off. And I might go out with my friends. Hey! New info can change the whole scene. I feel like I've already covered this, but yeah, new information can change the whole idea of what a scene, of like the mood, the vibe. New info can change the scene. So if you want to have very like sudden, because in writing you can't really do like jump scares, but not even just jump scares. You can't do surprises in the style of kind of like jump scares, where it's like, oh, suddenly things happen, because it can be read at the viewer's pace, the reader's pace. So it's you got to do it a little bit differently. You can inject kind of that surprise by having new info in a scene. So like you describe a room and it's very warm and comforting and seems very homey and things like that, and then the characters learn something terrible about the room, or they learn that the room is locked from the outside and there's no way to leave, and then that can make, then you can like re-describe the scene, or you don't even have to do that necessarily, but it suddenly makes the room feel, or it can suddenly make the room, instead of feeling comforting and safe and warm, it can feel like claustrophobic, it can feel cloying, it can feel like it's suffocating a person. And in those with that specific example, it's the like everything, the true facts about the room are being recontextualized by this new information, and things like that. Like the idea of the gingerbread house in Hansel and Gretel, where it looks really nice and sweet from the outside, and especially because they're children and they're naive, they think it's nice and sweet from the outside. But as we go into the story, we find out that the house is owned by a witch who kidnaps children and then bakes them to pies, and then it becomes a little bit more sinister. It's like, oh, that's a trap, that's bait for a trap, that is scary, kind of thing. So that's fun. Drawing focus. Focus. So with drawing focus, it's, I actually don't remember what exactly the question of drawing focus was about. But you kind of do just draw focus to things that are going to be important to the story, either by describing it more in detail, or just like mentioning it all, especially if you have like more of a general description for the room. If you just say, oh yeah, it's a library kind of thing, it's a very general description, but it is a description most people will know what that kind of looks like, and so you don't have to spend too much time on it. But if you say, oh, there's a library and there is a large blazing fireplace in the center of it, with wrought iron, there's like a wrought iron gate around the fire, and I don't know, something like that. Like you put a description on it, your quote unquote eye, like your mind's eye is going to be drawn to this fireplace, maybe not even as a central part of the plot or whatever, but as a central part of this environment. Let me see if there's more question on what this for making some parts of the setting important. How to differentiate between what's important to describe and what isn't. Well, that's a bit harder because I don't know what story is being written. It's going to depend on what to you is important and what isn't. You can kind of tell for certain settings, and I mean this in real life, like when you go into a place, you can kind of tell what in a place is important, especially if it's like something out of the ordinary. So like say you're in an official building and then there's a crest on the floor or some kind of insignia or something like that. Generally, like sometimes it'll be ringed with like barriers so people don't step on it, or it'll look very clean because people are not stepping on it, or it's just a very large, very vibrant insignia. And again, that may or may not be important to the story, but it can show that it's important to this environment. So it's going to be how much attention you give to these things, these characteristics, which will make them seem important or not important. It'll also be how characters interact with an environment. So we'll take the example of the insignia on the floor again. If your main character doesn't personally notice it, you can, if it's in a like third person limited POV of a character, you can describe it as part of the room, but your main character might not notice it. So they're walking forward through this room and they almost step on it. You can have another character pull them back and go, wait, you can't step here, it's because it's very important, blah 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 blah. Or they can walk over it and they can notice that everyone's looking at them, or they can look around them and see that no one else is stepping on it, or something like that, which will draw attention to this insignia on the floor and be like, oh yeah, that's kind of important, you're not supposed to step on it. kind of thing. So yeah, having characters interact with things is a very easy way to differentiate the importance, also the way you describe it, things like that. There's also this phenomenon called Chekhov's gun, which I'm gonna put here in... I don't actually remember how to spell it. Chekhov? Is it like that? I don't know. I don't think it is. Let me double check that actually, because it's not coming up on my thing. But Chekhov's gun is a foreshadowing. There's an H there. It's a... Oh, now you're showing me in the suggestion. Cool. It's a foreshadowing technique, but it is a setting foreshadowing technique, and it's it's when you describe something in a scene and then it turns out to be important later on. It's not important right there in the scene, but now the viewer knows about it, so it's something that they can imagine, and it's something that is in the world to be accessed. It's called Chekhov's gun because in like older media it was a gun that was used, and the saying with Chekhov's gun is if there's a gun in a scene, it's going to be fired later on in the story. So like you're describing a manor house and there is a rifle over the fireplace. That rifle is going to be used to shoot someone, or it's going to be important to the story somehow. Other things, you walk into we'll use a manor house living room again. You walk into a manor's living room and there's this large painting of the dead founder, or like the dead owner of this house, and the eyes are very creepy. You're drawing attention to this thing. You're like, hey, as a writer, you're like, hey, reader, look at this and remember it. Will be important, kind of thing. The eyes are creepy, and the main character notices it, that it's creepy. It's like a Scooby-Doo, to me, as a reader, that's like a Scooby-Doo situation. Oh, there's someone who is watching out of the eye holes of this painting, watching what's going on in this room. So, yeah, things like that. Anything you put on the screen that you give any kind of, I guess like meaningful description to, or any kind of, unique description to, will stand out to a reader as important. And I'm not gonna say like a long description, because if you're going for most of your descriptions are long and important, things like, or yeah, long and descriptive and things like that, then having another thing that's long and descriptive isn't going to necessarily make it stand out. But if you have it described differently, that's another thing with the senses, or the character's reaction. If you have like these little tidbits of information there, that's when you can kind of, the reader will be able to pick out, oh, this is different, this is important, blah 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 blah. There's no one here to ask me dumb questions. So there is mention importance to this. Scenery interesting. Wait, let me go back. How to make a setting feel creepy or unexplainable without it sounding boring. Creepy in general, it's hard to transmitting a sense of discomfort in a story. If I was doing a creepy scene or an uncomfortable scene or a weird scene, you want to have some kind of anchor point. Usually that's going to be the main character. Or you want to have some kind of comparison that's gonna, which can be another scene or it can be the main character's experiences in other areas. You can also use words like, it was off-putting, kind of thing. Scenery shouldn't be boring. And again, that's gonna be like a style thing. That's going to be how you format it and how you learn to describe things. Another point of read what you want to write, because some people are very, very good at writing very scary, very creepy, very off-putting imagery and settings, and then it's hard to explain how they do that without being like, yeah, they use, yeah, it's hard to explain it without those specific examples because it's going to be based on whatever they're describing. For me, I do like to think, when I'm writing a particular scene, and I'm gonna use scary in this situation, there are ways that the body reacts to certain situations where you know it's creepy and you can, like, visually you can see why it's creepy, but you can't really explain why it feels creepy. But the body will react in certain ways and you're like, oh yeah, that's off-putting. So things like shivers up your back, or your hands getting clammy, your heart beating faster, your breathing getting heavier. These are very obvious ways of, oh, the body is uncomfortable, something is wrong here, that can very, very quickly tell a reader, yeah, that something's wrong there, that the character does not understand, and can even kind of convince the reader to, hey, also feel these things. Hello. And then also using your different senses can also be helpful for that, yeah, can be helpful for that, because those will help, I'm just explaining. I was talking about where the description goes, new info, and then drawing focus, and now I'm talking about creepy scenes. Creepy, scary scenes. If you're doing unexplainable, please the tags, what? I beg? Huh? I'm confused, what? Dialogue. Oh, yeah. Oh, dialogue tags, yes. I also did cover that, but we can go over, again, because you did ask and you're here. Maybe how to not go overboard with dialogue tags and actually use them correctly. Cosmic horror, cosmic, we'll go with that anyway, after. When it comes to dialogue tags, you kind of have to have a feel for, yeah, I don't know if I explained it a lot, it's fine. I'll go into more detail right now. You have to have a feel for the way the conversation is, or the speed of which the conversation is moving. The speed and the mood of the people interacting. So if you're having a more drawn out conversation, or it's a more casual conversation, or they're more comfortable, then you can have more dialogue tags. Or if there's a lot that the characters are doing, well, not dialogue tags, but like action dialogue, like speaking tags, that kind of thing. There's a lot more that the characters are doing, then you're gonna have a lot more action tags. You might even have paragraphs, straight up. When it comes to specifically dialogue tags, like he said, she said, they said, they asked, you want to avoid those until you can't avoid them, because they're really easy to overdo, but you won't necessarily notice if they're fully gone if you're using action tags instead. So in my personal opinion, use them kind of not as little as possible, but minimally. So for example, do I have any dialogue here? I have one dialogue. Like, I don't know, Bridge said, kind of sus that you were near both bodies. I literally said I was Canadian. No dialogue tag, no action tag, because we know who it is, and they're not necessarily, Kuso's not necessarily doing anything in this scene. So there's no need for that, but we also know that Kuso's speaking, so there's no need for saying Kuso said. I don't know, Bridge said again, but in this case, even though we know that it's Bridge and Kuso speaking, or, well, there's also Kaz in this, in this environment, so we don't actually know if it's necessarily bridge. I could have put, I don't know, bridge was filling, like bridge filled out their ballot, I don't know, could have had that, but kind of like you want dialogue tags are mention answer too much, sometimes said, and then use some like sadly, loudly, or any other words like that could be appropriate word, and you would need a mix of said and other synonyms for that word. Yeah, that's true. You could use other versions of dialogue tags where you're not saying said, you're using asked, whatever. That can very well speed up a scene. It makes it a lot easier, then you don't have to go through the actions of people doing things. But it can make, again, it's like one step up of doing void dialogue where you just got nothing out there, and it can feel very repetitive even if you do that. And then what are those adverbs? Sadly, loudly. A lot of people will say avoid adverbs entirely, probably because it feels more tell than show. You can use adverbs if you want, honestly, as long as you're using them in moderation. Use adverbs. They will, of course, shorten everything. Things like dialogue tags and adverbs will kind of shorten the story, kind of the information you're giving out, because you're using it as a shortcut essentially, and they're just kind of out there. How to outline? Gross. I was talking to Debbie about this actually. It's going to depend on how much of an outline you need. I literally sent Debbie an example of 2 outlines I've did. One was literally one was literally me just listing off very vague descriptions of what I kind of wanted in this story, just to kind of keep track of, and I use it as like a checklist. That's what me trying to outline, it's so hard. Personally, yeah, I use it as a checklist for writing stories, which doesn't work for everyone, but like this example, this is an example of what I do for an outline. So I literally just have like write little bullet points of what the plot is going to be like, scenes I want to write. Sometimes when I'm outlining, I'll write specific point, like bits of dialogue, which don't always stick because sometimes the story goes off on a tangent. But I'll write like all the ideas I have out at once, and then I can look at it from a distance and see what I want to keep, how things flow together, kind of thing. That's how I use outlines, and then I use them as a checklist. Some people need a little bit more outlines. I'm not a great example of someone who uses outlines because I'm bad at it. But that's generally how I do it. Let me actually check to see if I wrote anything more useful to Debbie, because I explained this to her earlier. It also depends on how you visualize things. Oh yeah, oh yeah, hi Frost! Hello, welcome! You're new! Welcome to the council. When you're a chat, you're part of the council, which means you get to tell me to do things, or more accurately, I ask you to tell me to do things. Anyway, have fun. We like to talk about writing randomly. Yeah, if your outline ends up being longer than you think you could actually write the thing, it depends on how long your stuff is. There is a level of too much preparation. If it gets to the point where you're no longer talking about the story, it's usually, for me, it's like world building, but usually it's if you've gotten away from the story, you're doing too much. Dial it back in. Yeah, if you're getting away from what the story is, you're doing too much. If you have okay, a 90,000 word outline can be fine. Okay, it can be okay if the thing you're writing is plus 90,000 words. If it's like 200k words, then it's like probably fine. It depends on how long your story is. Define going away for the story, because the world building is important. It is important, but if you have been world building so hard that the characters in your story and the plot you're talking about is nowhere in the vicinity of what you're world building, you're going a little bit far. If there is if you can't think of a reason that your characters in your story, the plot you're in, and the story that you want to tell, if you can't think of a reason for them to interact with the other stuff you're world building, it's too far out of the realm. It's too far outside the realm of being important, which is something I am guilty of. Although, okay, so I'm guilty of that. Never mind. I'm fully guilty of that. Another thing about outlining, because we're still on outlining, it depends on how you understand information. Like, Debbie is a very visual person, so I suggested that it might be easier if she like writes like physically makes a timeline, like writes a line out and then has little ticks where like things happen, so she can see the way that things line up against each other. If she writes it on pieces of paper, using different pens or markers and colors to kind of give... God, I hope those are fireworks. It's July 1st, so it's Canada Day, so I hope that's a firework. Whatever. But yeah, doing things to give visual interest to different parts might make it easier to see. That's so cool, but also so much effort. Yeah, it depends on what you need and you're willing to do. For me, I don't do that. I just make my bullet lists because that works for me. Hell yeah, Canadian quote-unquote writer, sure. Sure, I write. But also for Debbie who draws, doing like thumbnails, for what she's trying to do. Yeah, I also literally some of my outline notes are like just have like the mood of whatever I'm going for. So it's like, yeah, make it creepy, which is quote-unquote helpful, but I basically use them as reminders for what I'm doing, and things like that. It really is, what do you need and what's going to help you get through what you're trying to do. It can be too much if you have like a very strict outline. It can be unhelpful if you tend to be a person who lets characters kind of do what they want, because that'll happen to me. I'll write I'll write an outline and then I'll actually be writing and I'm like, oh wow, these characters are doing something else. I did not consider this. And then I have to throw out the outline and it's a waste of time. So that's fun. I think actually literally in this I have things that are not helpful. Okay, this did actually come up. I don't think... Okay, yeah, no, actually these things did come up, but like... I don't... Me being... No, actually... Here. Zinc keeps running to walls because of Birdwatcher mechanic and also is caught by Kaz and killed because he's too slow. This... And and Chandelier here, which are like, you know, the ways to kill in Goose Goose Duck. This doesn't come up. Zinc dies off screen. Well, he basically dies off screen. It's like, oh no, he's about to die, and we don't actually see what's happening. And I don't think he yeah, here Zinc didn't react fast enough. He gets crushed by a chandelier. We all know this happens. I don't mention it at all, that because it didn't feel right for the scene. And also the fact that he was running to walls never came up. Oops. Sorry. Sorry, outlining me. You're making points that are unimportant. Oh well. Here, let's see what else was questions that I was being asked. I talked about how to differentiate things in the VOD for the people who are not here to ask me questions. It's important for you to know that, /A. It can be important for me to know that, even if I don't use it, sort of in a way that I can kind of work off of that information, which is why I like to which is why some world building outside of your plot is okay, because then you have like, oh yeah, this would affect this, which affects the plot, but if it's like, this will affect this, but none of this here will affect the plot, or it'll affect the plot like 5 stages down, then it's like, why are you... Don't do that. Don't... Stay closer. Stay in the realm of what you're doing. Making scenery interesting with different adjectives. How do I make the scenery clear to the reader in their head so confusion won't happen later in the story if a certain object is used? you feel called out. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm talking about me. This is about me and my world building book where I just go on just long tangents. I've had so many times where I'm literally just sitting in bed, like galaxy braining about the hallway and like all of how it works and how it specifically relates to other things and how blah 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 works, and it's just like none of this will ever come up in the story you're writing. To be fair to me, I want to know this information. I want to know this stuff. It's funny to keep going, that's true. I want to know this stuff. I want it to like relate to each other, and it can help me when I'm figuring out other things, because with the hallway, I'm literally building the basis of like the fabric of this reality. So technically it is related, but it's like, it's related 5 steps down, and I don't actually need to know this stuff right now, but I get so into thinking about it that I just kind of pass out on my bed because my head hurts after a while. How to make scenery interesting with different adjectives. It's about how you say it. It's about how you phrase it. Different adjectives are good. Just like unique adjectives can be nice, but if you use too many unique adjectives, it can sound like you're using a thesaurus and all over the place and kind of gross. It can sound like a lot, and it can sound like you're trying too hard. It doesn't, or like it can sound outside of your writing style, because everyone has a writing style, even if you feel like you don't. You do. It's part of your soul. You don't get a choice. But staying away from words like very, or words like... Staying away from telling and not showing, again, that is something you kind of have to understand through reading about stuff, which is something we've gone over. You gotta read and read things in the realm or the genre of what you want to write. You kind of have to figure out what works, and specifically for you, what works, what you think you like, or not what you think you like, but what you like and what you want to go with, or else you're just gonna be writing in, like, I can explain how I do things, but then you're just gonna be writing in my style. You only get a writing style when you're at some level, at least some levels into the writing skill. No, absolutely not. We can go back to my old writing and my old, yeah, my old writing, from like when I was a very small kid. By small kid, I was like an actual child, I guess. And my memories of what I was writing were very similar, not very similar, but you could very clearly tell where I would be, or like where I came from with certain things. Like in the way that you're good at writing? No, not necessarily. But you could tell from when I was small, the way that I wrote, the voice that I wrote in was very similar to the voice I write in now. I mean, it would be better than our beginning? No, that's not how this works. Shut up. It's practice, it's a lot of reading. God, I wrote so much. It's also the way my brain works is very conducive to certain things about writing. I'm also a style over substance person, which is not great for long, complicated plots. But like, the things you want to write about factor into the things that you write. The things you want to read, the things you want to consume will all factor into the way that you write. For example, me referencing D&D so much when it comes to my writing is because I really like D&D. I don't know if you could tell, I really like D&D. So the way that I describe scenarios, the way that my characters act, the way that I feel when I'm writing is very much like a DM, and then my characters are my PCs, and they kind of just do what they want, and how they, like, it's how they would react to the situation. It's what they're doing when they're in this space. It's not about what I want them to do. I don't have a say in what they do. I am here and I'm being subjected to them. My job is to throw things in their path and see what they do. See how they dance. I would have never guessed you like D&D. Oh wow, really? I have to stretch. I'll be back. But yeah, the way you make things interesting is to learn, is like to find what interests you. Because I can describe how you're the exasperated DM trying to connect the story. Exactly. Which is, again, another thing where writing outlines is a little bit difficult for me because I give so much agency to my characters, it can be difficult to railroad them because they want to do something else. It literally will come up sometimes where when I'm writing something into an outline, and then I get to actually writing that scene out, and I'm like, oh wow, they don't actually have a reason to go to do the rest of the stuff in my outline because they're gonna do this other thing. Okay, well, throw out the rest of that outline because they're doing this other thing now. And because they're doing that, the rest of the story kind of falls apart, which is why sometimes extensive outlines aren't helpful for me. It may not be helpful for a lot of other people for that reason, but it can also be very helpful because some people need to have a lot more of a clear-cut plot, like, pathway for their characters to go through to actually get a story down. I will be stretching. Give me a second. OMG, you still have the bits badge. Nice. You shouldn't outline because your characters are... they do what they want. I'm saying I don't like to outline because they do that. Whether or not you need to do that is up to you. Speaking of outlines, when I read back a story or a scene or something that I'm doing and I feel like it's too short, cool. But sometimes I'll read through something and I'll be like, there is not enough happening, or that's too, it feels like it's too fast what's going on, because I use time skips. Because it's my dialogue, okay. But yeah, I'll use like mini time skips, but they're not really time skips, they're literally just scene breaks, so use my scene breaks. Sometimes I'll notice that it feels like it's too fast between scenes, between plot important scenes, so I'll put like scene breaks in between, and then I'll write in notes as part of my quote-unquote outline that something else needs to happen, and then I'll write notes for like what I think might happen. And that's something you understand from reading things, and also you're reading your own writing and writing a lot of things. It's understanding the way that you do pacing and how other people do story pacing, and seeing what makes sense for how long things are. You still try to outline even though your characters do, but that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Outline reading is too much work though. I'm so sorry. Writing is 50% reading. Right, yeah, writing is 50% reading. That's it. And then the other 50% is actually writing. I could break that down farther. Yeah, let's see. How do I make scenery clear to the reader in their head so confusion won't happen later in the story if a certain object is used? This is mostly because of my tinted green fic where I'm struggling to make scenery clear to the reader so when, let's say, the radio is mentioned, it doesn't confuse people where it came from or its importance to the story. It's gonna be how you describe it. For the radio specifically, for that specific example in the specific place, which is the council rooms, how I've thought about it is there is a radio in every single room. Not like the PA system is different, but like a boombox radio, or maybe the PA system, and it doesn't matter. If you're establishing it as part of every single room, and your characters are going between rooms, you can say, oh, you can have a character mention that, oh, there's a radio in here, just like the other room, and things like that. When do I have time to sit and daydream about your silly little story? That's not part of reading. That's not part of writing. Writing is 50% reading and 50% writing. I could break down later, but actually, okay. So writing is 50% reading. It is like 30% sitting around and daydreaming, and then like 20% writing, or less. There's probably less writing. Hello. Hey, can you explain to me your question about making scenery clear to the reader? Because I don't know what you mean by that. Because you're asking about how to make scenery clear to the reader so that people don't get confused. I don't know, because you have to explain it enough that they have an idea of what's going on, but you have to make sure that you're not over-explaining it, like explaining so many little details that they kind of, I guess, can't see the forest, they can only see the trees, kind of thing. Yeah, that's kind of the idea when you're explaining things more generally and you're trying to keep it clear. You want to be real. If you want things to be very clear, you have to be more general, you have to be more simple with how you're explaining things. You have to be, you have to simplify how you're explaining things. If you're describing a room in the council rooms, like a club room, it's a room and then there's things in it, kind of thing, and then how that is going to be depending on whatever. Let me say the writing club, for example. Like the writing club I've described is like a sea of pillows and writing utensils, and it's constantly moving but very, very slowly. I don't know if that becomes very clear what it looks like, but to me that feels pretty clear. And it's a very short description, but like there's a lot going on. Like there are a lot of pillows, there are a lot of cushions, comforters, there's blankets, they're all different colors, all different textures, and then there's also like pens and pencils and writing pads and laptops that only have writing software in them, strewn about, and not fast enough that you like will get buried by the pillows, but slow but enough that you notice as you're sitting there the pillows and blankets and writing utensils kind of undulate and move and roll over each other, to the point where it's like constantly refreshing whatever's on top of it, so it never looks the same. And this is in a room, I guess, technically. But it's kind of weird and expansive, and you don't really know where the edge of the rooms are. And there is a PA system somewhere up there, but in all of the rooms in the council rooms, there's not really a ceiling as much as there's kind of like an above space, like a space above your heads. So there's kind of that idea. Everyone keeps getting you journals for your birthday. Oh, also, thank you so much for the 3 bits. Journal for journal, I just wonder why I get so many until I resign for writer. All I want is books. Give me books for my birthday and I'll be happy. You're so right. One of my favorite things is getting stationery. I feel so weird and old saying that, but God, I love stationery. Like, books, like notebooks, pencils, pens, markers, erasers, what is it? Pencil cases. God, I love pencil cases. I have a shelf in my room just dedicated to journals that people have given me that I use for different things. God, I love journals. They're so fun. Who are you? What is your name? This is Frost. Who knows who this is? New friend? Question mark? I don't know. But yeah, I hope I explained anything well. I've been talking for 2 hours and 20 minutes and I'm starting to get loopy. My brain's starting to fold in on itself. Like the writing club in the counselor room. Oh god. Yo, Frost, I hope I'm making any kind of sense to you because I'm talking about things that are very inside baseball. The council room and the club rooms and all of that. It's the Discord server. I have created a world in which my chat, and so technically my friends, technically my chat, live in my Discord server, and it's like a world that is related to one of my original works that I'm working on right now. And someone in this chat is kind of obsessed with it, and it's not me. I'm also obsessed with it, but that's beside the point. God, I'm going crazy here. Debbie says, also, I kind of have this whip of a fic where the setting will change a lot, so is there anything to keep in mind while changing or introducing new settings a lot? Be clear in your transitions, I guess. You can see it in YouTube. Can you? No. You're just handwriting your book to a Chromebook, which when Into Flames comes back home. Nice. Yeah, it's so the difference between writing on a computer or a laptop or whatever, writing digitally and writing by hand is so different. It's such a different vibe. I don't know why. It feels more permanent on paper. Even if I'm using a pencil and it's like my notes book. Not my notebook, it's my notes book. It's my world building book, so I'm just writing whatever comes to mind. It feels so much more permanent on paper, and I feel like I have to be better if I'm writing on paper. Why is the TikTok still there? You don't post? Shut up. It's so different. Yeah, I know. Which is why I was ragging on Kai for writing on paper and then transferring it to computer. It's a different vibe. Also, I'd say I'm faster at typing than I am at writing shorthand, longhand, I guess you'd say. So my brain works very fast, so it can be hard for me to remember what I'm talking about or what I'm thinking when I'm writing, and so when I'm writing by hand, it can very quickly end up with me literally just sitting there being like, what was I thinking? What was I writing? What is this word that I've ended up on? Well, when I'm typing, there's a lot less brain power, I guess, and so I can just kind of write a lot more. You're physically feeling emotions? Oh god. Your family doesn't understand when I say it's not the same writing on paper as digitally. Yeah, it's also writing on PC and phone is very different as well. Yeah, exactly. I think I'm more comfortable writing on my phone than I am on a computer, but I get things done faster on a computer than I do on my phone. So it's weird. It's a weird thing that I'm experiencing. Yeah, when changing settings a lot, I'd say make sure your transitions are clear. It doesn't even have to be an actual transition where your characters are doing something. Even if it's like a scene cut, make sure you're very clear that they're doing something, they're somewhere else. Or if they are actually moving from scene to or setting to setting, make sure you're clear about that and that it kind of makes sense spatially in terms of how long something takes or how long they take to get from one place to another, because you kind of like sense of time is one of the senses that people have, and even in writing, people will understand that sense of time. So unless you have something, it doesn't have to be exact one-to-one. It shouldn't be exact one-to-one of real time versus time in book or time in writing. But it does have to feel generally like, oh, you've spent enough time going from one place to another where it makes sense. You can cheat it a little bit by saying minutes or seconds or hours or days have passed between setting 1 and setting 2, which can, again, cheat the system a little bit. But if you're having something happen in between, you do kind of want to give it a sense, like the time, a sense of weight, even if it's like adding in little scenes, like little vignettes of them doing stuff in between, or if like they're literally just walking from one classroom to the next, you kind of want to mention that they're moving. If it's something very quick like that, you can literally just say they're moving, and that's enough time passing between the two. But they shouldn't just appear in a new area, right? Writing on computer is very much better for your brain. You can check all your references and sites in your Google Docs about things, and it's so much better. But you're on paper, your brain goes, yeah. Writing on computer tends, for me, I do tend to get, if I'm in the zone, I'm in the zone, but I tend to get like distracted a lot easier because I can pull up different tabs. On the phone, I kind of am locked into whatever I'm writing on, so my notes app or Google Docs or something, and unless I hit the home button and then exit out and go to a new tab, I'm kind of stuck in there. So I'm more consistent on my phone, but on the computer I write more. It's weird. I've written more on my phone, though. I've written thousands upon thousands of words more on my phone, mostly because it's portable. I also have an aversion to sitting at my laptop for some reason, but it's fine. It's cool and dandy, and everything's okay, and I'm not struggling here. Anyway, that is actually what I have for the things I've already thought of and gone over. Or like, yeah, the things I've thought of when talking about settings and imagery and stuff. Do y'all have questions? Do y'all have questions about what I'm talking about? I'm going to like see this VOD tomorrow and open your bridge classes school doc and make notes. So funny. I've started being a teacher, huh? I have no credentials for this. I just read a lot and I write a lot, okay? I don't write a lot. I'm a liar. I'm a liar. I lie about writing. Dedicated to writing classes, OMG. I feel like it'd be good of me to like edit down the writing classes, but also like, no, I'm not doing that. The VODs are up if you want to look at them. Funny fact, I think. I've tricked myself into using y'all as part of my actual vocabulary. People say using it unironically. I never use things ironically. I have never used words ironically. Words will always be authentic coming out of my mouth. Terribly so. You use y'all all the time? Yeah, but sometimes with certain words that I'm using quote-unquote ironically, it's never ironic, I'll have to think about it, where most of the time my words are like preload into my brain and I will just use them the way I use them. I have been using y'all preloaded into my brain. Y'all aren't hearing me? Yes, yeah. But what was I saying? My brain is going woo, woo, woo. I like to lie. I don't write. We all know this. I don't write. I've never written anything before. Yeah, do you have any questions? You zoned out? I always zone out. I'm always zoning out, my guy. Never. Never. I'm not doing it. Shut up. But yeah, I was thinking of like maybe I'll edit down the writing streams to be YouTube videos, but then I remembered that my writing streams are me rambling for 2 hours for 2+ hours and being like, I have no idea what's going on by the end of it. And I feel like it'd be funny in like a distant way. I just descend into madness as I talk about something I'm very passionate about, but it's also like that's not helpful to me. I can't do that. You don't have any yet because you need to see the class recording tomorrow before it comes out on the test. How do we keep motivated to write, teacher? How do you keep motivated to do anything, huh? Want to do it, I guess? Have goals, set goals, give yourself deadlines, have other people give you deadlines. I don't know, my dude. Yeah. Sometimes I'll have writing bug, the writing sickness, and then I have to write, and it's like I have to stop pulling at the ears on my my power bank. My power bank is a bear, and it has little rubbery ears, and I keep pulling at them, and I will rip them off. Anyway, I sometimes get the writing disease, and then I can do nothing but think about writing and write, and it's all I want to do with my free time, which is great for productivity, very bad for giving me a realistic expectation of how long it takes me to write something, or how I can write something, and then sometimes it's pulling teeth. It's like pulling teeth. There are some times where it's like you have to just push through it, and if pushing through it means you do the bare minimum for a scene, do the bare minimum for a scene. It is easier to edit and to add than it is to just start writing. So if you can, like, I was literally writing a scene earlier today where I was like, I don't want to write this, but I also didn't want to write anything else for that scene, and I wanted to continue the scene I was writing. So I just kind of wrote the bare minimum of what I could think, and I literally looked back at it and was like, I'm missing a lot of information there. I will go back and add that later. Like, literally just do a little bit. Do a little bit and what you can. Just write, do something, I don't know, I don't get paid enough. I don't get paid enough. I don't get paid. How do you do 3-dimensional characters? No 3-dimensional people. Have examples of 3-dimensional characters. Also, what do you want for the fun fact? What fun fact do you want? 3-dimensional characters is something everyone tries to do and lots of people fail at. I don't know if any of the characters I've written are 3-dimensional, but truly what you want to do when you're writing 3-dimensional characters is you want the characters to have reason for what they're doing and have nuance, I guess you could say. Like, the difference between a 2-dimensional character or a 1-note character and a 3-dimensional character is that the 2-dimensional character will just be doing things, and a 3-dimensional character will have a reason to be doing things, right? It's also why, like, protagonists are oftentimes the most boring out of a cast of people, because a lot of the times you're in their head or somewhere close to where their head is, so you kind of see all the things they're going through and you have the most information about them. And if the writer is not great at like writing and creating characters, then they can feel very bland and empty and like they don't have a lot going on. But they can write side characters, and because you don't know a lot about the side characters and there's a lot of mystery surrounding them, they're more up to interpretation. So you can kind of, another thing about literally the readers will do half the work for you. The reason side characters are more interesting is because literally they can kind of do whatever they want. And there's that mystery, and like the reader can implant their own ideas or whatever and make them feel 3-dimensional. Thank you for the follow, Frost. What is the fun fact that you want, Kai? Would I like to live in a Victorian house made of washed out crimson bricks with wood accents? Sure. Yeah, sure. Love old style architecture. It's cool. How do we make them have different voices? How do you make them have different voices? You give them different personalities. You give them different points of view. A lot of writers have distinct dialogue, and it's not like for characters, but like for specific characters. It's for all of their characters. A lot of writers will have like staple dialogue, either like specific phrases they say or the way that they say things. Like, have you ever heard someone talk about how Marvel movies are written? Like, the dialogue in them are very Marvel movie, even if the characters are different and you can recognize them as different characters. Some of them will say things that feel very Marvel, like, oh, it's right behind me, isn't it? Kind of thing. Yeah, it's like when a character is standing and it's just like, oh yeah, we're so glad we escaped the bad guy, and then all the characters are looking at them, and then there's like a pause and they just go, it's right behind me, isn't it? And the bad guy, whatever, is actually behind them. Like, that's a very Marvel thing, and a lot of characters can say it. It's a very specific example, but that's what I mean. So the dialogue, the actual way that words are written and the way sentences are structured can be very similar between characters. It doesn't have to feel specific, like each line is something that's said by different people, because a lot of people will talk in a very similar way. Sometimes you can do specific quirks, like sometimes characters or actually just people will have certain phrases that they will say a lot more than other people. Like, for example, How to Train Your Dragon, the series, love it to death, but the amount that Hiccup says the word bud and buddy is it's a flanderization. It's something that works for the character, but it's a very funny thing that they actually reference in the show, that he does it so much, and it feels correct to his character, and something that other characters don't do, or don't do as often. Because I like the series. Leave me alone. I'm allowed to like How to Train Your Dragon, and I'm allowed to reference it whenever I want. But yeah, like, there are some things that can be very specific to a character, like Hiccup saying bud and buddy all of the time. But the actual dialogue itself doesn't have to be character specific. It's the things that the character knows about, the things that they would start talking, or like the reasons that they would jump into a conversation are going to be different between characters. What's my favorite dragon? I don't know. I don't have a specific favorite dragon. Anyway, I'm sitting up straight. Leave me alone. But yeah, the specific dialogue doesn't have to be different, but the reasons for a character talking, how much they talk, yeah, like the reason for a character talking, how much they talk, are different. The opinions they have, when people generally talk about the when people generally talk about the voices of characters, it's like their opinions and the ideas they have, and things like that that are important. Like, you would notice the difference between character A and character B if character A, let's say it was important for the story that character A liked pineapple and pizza and character B really did not like pineapple and pizza. If that's important to the story, obviously they're going to be very different. But it's also things like, I just don't want them to sound the same. They'll sound different if they have different foundations, like building blocks for the characters. Like, yeah, it can be a difficult thing to write, talking different accents in your head. That may work, that may not work. If the characters are the same personality, that might not work. I do like little templates of what kind of characters I want, so I'll say, oh, this character is smart, this character is very chill, this character is very hyperactive and loud and things like that. And I'll write those down, and again, I use my outlines as kind of a checklist, so I'll have them in the back of my mind so that when I'm writing their dialogue, it feels more like that as part of their characters. Oh yeah, we reached 100 followers! Yay! But yeah, you want to have like those ideas in mind when you're writing them, because thank you. Thanks to Frost for following. When you're writing, like, let's say we have character. We'll have character A be. I don't know, actually. I don't know how to write this out without having examples. It's hard to do. But also other things, like in this, we have Austin here, random person, being apprehensive and feeling a little bit nervous in this situation. And you can have things like that. Because the personality of characters and their dialogue isn't just what they say, it's how they say it and how they react. So you can have two characters say the exact same thing, which is, for reference, this is, like, in acting, you can give two different actors the same script and have them read for the same character, but you'll get two different characters because, yeah, you'll get two different characters because of how they interpret those, so how they express that kind of emotion, or they express those lines of dialogue. So if you want to have the line, give me a sentence, give me a line of dialogue to interpret several different ways, at least two different ways. But yes, when you lurk, you kind of curl up in a blanket and you hide. Give me a sentence. Losers, give me a sentence. I have the high ground. Okay, fine. I have high ground. Ugh, high ground. I love it when I can type. It's great. I have the high ground. I'm loser. Good morning. Hello. So, phrase, I have the high ground. You can say it. This is generally going to be, because of the words that are here, going to be something you say to another character to prove that you're winning, right? But you can say it in, like, a boastful way. So you could have a character go, I have the high ground. They yelled, I can tell. You would have the character saying, I have the high ground, yelling, and they're standing up straight, and they're, like, puffing out their chest, and, like, they're very proud of it. Or you can have, if it's been, like, that'll be, like, it could be a very proud character, it could be a very arrogant character. Or you can have a character who is more sympathetic to the person that they're fighting, and, like, they're saying it under their breath, or not under their breath, but they're saying it lowly, and it's more like they're closer, and it's like a more intimate situation, so they're saying it with more of a warning, like, I have the high ground, you can't defeat me, you have to stop here, something like that. And that's a way you can have the same dialogue, but with two different types of characters, right? And with the boastful character, you can also do, I have the high ground, and they might have the high ground, but it's a precarious thing where it's like, yeah, they could fall off at any moment. Literally or figuratively, they could fall off. But things like that will give you an idea of different personalities, because the actual words themselves don't necessarily matter. They can, but it's going to be the content that is, that gives you that kind of different personalities. And then also what the characters do. So for example, if you have a very smart character, or a character that is described as very smart, you kind of have to have them figuring things out. If you're going for an actual smart character, you have to have them figuring things out or understanding things very quickly, or getting, like you have to show examples of them being smart. You can also do the thing a lot of writers will do if they want to be very lazy about it and just have them talk smart, or have people say that a character is very smart and then not actually have them be very smart, which is a loser way of doing things. You can also, like, if you have the character talk smart but not actually be smart, you can have that be part of their character, where it's like they think they're smart and they're trying to show off that they're smart, but no one actually thinks they're smart, and things like that. Just saying but not showing. Yeah, exactly. You can do that, but what you're doing is you're showing the audience that this character thinks they're smart, or has put a lot of effort into appearing smart, but is not actually smart, because they're not doing anything that refers to them being smart. It's just they have a large vocabulary and they're just saying lots of things, which is how I am. People think I'm smart, I just say a lot of words, my dude. I am also very good at, like, implying information from things. So I'll get, like, a single sentence of information and then I'll just expand on that, because I'm very good at adding words to things. I'm a liar. Who said you were smart? Other people think I'm smart, okay? Other people think I'm smart, okay? Also, you're here to be taught by me, so you think I'm smart. You think I have experience on this, whatever. Information. Knowledge. There's also the thing, like, knowledge, like, what actual intelligence is, but that's talking about intelligence specifically, not actual character traits. It's beside the point. You can have, yeah, characters be different personalities by what they do and the things they say, but not necessarily how they say it. And it's going to be how you build those characters. So I would suggest creating little character cards or character worksheets for them. Just so you don't have to kind of figure out what a character's personality is on the fly, because that can be kind of hard, and also makes them kind of feel like out of it. But yeah, personality is one thing, but also experience is another thing. I have a questionnaire of so many questions. That can be helpful. Some people do questionnaires. There are, like, lists online of questions you can ask about each character that'll help you develop the type of person they are. I have my own personal one where it's like, what kind of, that have, like, simple questions of what they would do. That's also how I, again, invent my D&D characters, because I love my D&D characters. But one of them is, like, I have, like, a simple one where it's like, are they a wanderer? Like, will they wander around? Do they wander with their mind? Do they wander with their body? Things like that. One of them is, would they set a house on fire? Do you just love D&D? Yes. One of my things is, will they set a house on fire? And then, like, there's a simple question and then the why of it. It's like, yeah, okay, we'll explain it. Arson, yeah. Some characters would, some characters wouldn't. There can also be, like, certain... I feel like the yes or no questions are more fun to do, but if you really want questions that really help you kind of get into more information about a character, you have to ask open-ended questions and things that are personality based. So something like, when your character was a kid, what did they want to be when they grew up? And then what do they want to be now? Or, like, what do they want to do now? Because that'll help give you a lot of information. So the part about when they were a kid, it tells you what their ideals were, what they thought was very cool, because oftentimes when people are kids, the jobs they want to do are just things they think are cool, or that'll give them the cool experiences. And then if you go to what do they want to be now, if they have the same idea of what they want to be, then when they were a kid, they very much knew what they wanted to do, and they're a character who's pretty much known what they wanted to do their whole life. If it's something different, why did it change? What is it now? Can imply that their ideals have changed. Maybe they had a bad experience with the occupation beforehand. Maybe it's just that they grew up and they realized that it was kind of a silly little thing that they were doing. Things like that. So it's questions like that really help you kind of determine what you want a character to be. Like, for the what does your character want to be when they grow up? Mal, my beloved, would be a cop. It's the funniest thing to me, because it's like, yes, I love Mal as a character, and of course, ACAB, but Mal would be a cop if they were in, I guess, like, the real world. They would 100% be a cop, or maybe they'd be some kind of government. They'd be a cop or they'd be in the military, just because that's how they were raised and that's how they grew up. And that's the story that kind of goes on. It's like, yeah, they have this kind of mentality, and then they are broken out of it by the events of what happens and the people that they meet. What are you supposed to stop characterizing and start writing? My phone fell and it distracted me. You start writing as soon as you can. Characterization, you should be doing while you're writing. But if you find yourself in a spot where you don't know, or you can't tell the difference between your own characters, personality-wise, then that's when you do characterization. But you should really be writing as soon as you can. If you think, if you're at a point where you're thinking, should I stop should I continue characterizing, or should I start writing? You should start writing. If you feel like you have nowhere, if you feel like you don't have any kind of anchors to start writing at, then you should be doing the world building, you should be doing the outlining, you should be doing the character building. But if you have kind of a grasp of what you're trying to get to, that's when you do start writing. Outlining is a little bit wishy-washy, because that is a little bit helpful for finishing stories, especially if when you're outlining you actually figure out the important plot points, like how things end, what the climax of the story is, how we lead up to things. That's kind of important, and you kind of want to get that done. But for world building and characterization, 100%, if you have something to grab onto, you should start writing. Feel like I will finish the chapter tomorrow. If I do, I'll share it with the club. Yay! We love that. All right, cool. It also, something I learned that really helps for motivation, because we talked about this before, having people to write to is really helpful. I saw this one post that someone made about being a writer versus being a storyteller, and I was very like that really did kind of sit with me, because it was like a very true idea. When you're a writer, you're writing to write. Like, it's for the act of writing. You're doing it for yourself, you're not doing it for anyone else. When you're a storyteller, which is what most people think of when they think of writing, you're doing it to bring something to the world. You're writing for other people to experience, and when you're a storyteller, you kind of need that outside approval, or those outside eyes, in order to do your craft. When you're a writer, that's like bullet journaling in general, things like that, and it's the act of writing, it's what you get out of it yourself that is important, and oftentimes you don't actually want other people to see it. If you're storytelling, you need other people to write for. It's kind of, I guess this would be for any kind of performance art, but I heard it a lot when I was playing the saxophone, so when I was in band, that performing is part of practicing, and that's a true statement. Whenever you are doing some kind of art that is experienced by other people, it's the fact that it's being experienced by other people is part of the process of the art, right? But then bothering people so they read your stuff is, yeah, I know. It's nice when other people do read your stuff, but also having the idea of other people writing your stuff is helpful. That is kind of why fanfiction is so prolific, because it is other people reading your stuff and knowing that other people are probably going to read your stuff, and having a lot easier access to other people reading your stuff when you're writing fanfiction. Oh my god, it's Zinc! I've been streaming for nearly 3 hours. The sun? Oh yeah, me too. Kill it. Kill the sun. I am so much darker on my arms and hands than I am on any other part of my body, and it's like bad. Close your curtains. Praise the sun. Yeah. I'm like burned. I got burns on my arms, and then that's why I got so dark. And then I've been putting on sunblock. So that's fun. No, you got no curtains? Put a sheet over your windows. I don't know what you want me to do. Called Cultist Simulator? This is not a cult. Anyway, are there any last minute questions? Because I've been speaking for nearly 3 hours and my head hurts. Damn, imagine being Debbie and missing this writing stream and not being able to ask any questions. I think Debbie's missed all of the writing streams, actually. 100% a cult? It's not a cult, Zing! I think Debbie has missed all of the writing streams and has not been able to ask me any questions. I literally said that I'd be doing this. Oh my god. Anyway. Yeah, if there's no more questions, I think I will be calling it a night. Yeah. Missed most of them, yeah. Alright, well, if no one else has any more questions, I would like to thank you all for coming. If you're here, thank you. What was it? If you're here, thank you for coming. If you stayed, thank you for staying. I think I literally streamed earlier this week. If you're here, thank you for coming. If you stayed, thank you for staying. Good night. Good night. I will see you next week? Question mark? We'll see. Hopefully I will. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.